Apart from the fact that the previous generation Ford Kuga arrived in South Africa just a little late, there wasn't too much wrong with that vehicle, and yet it endured a lot of criticism, mainly because it had been available in Europe for such a long time, and some people felt that it was just a little outdated. Well, the good news is that the new Ford Kuga is here, and it places the emphasis very much on advanced technology and on frugality. That's hardly surprising, given that the Kuga is targeting an increasingly eco-conscious customer intent not only on saving the planet, but also saving money at the fuel pump. As is almost a given for second-generation models, the new Kuga is larger than its predecessor and comes equipped with a long list of features, even if some of those are offered on the top-line models only. Interestingly, the options list includes some sophisticated high-tech safety kit, and while they do bump up the asking price, they allow the Kuga to stray into premium car territory, at least in safety and tech terms. The new Kuga looks bigger and bolder than its predecessor, and in fact, it shows off some of those styling cues that we've already seen with the new Ford Focus. It's got a tall stance, and that strong waistline adds an element of dynamic intent. But, to my mind, it looks more street rider than dirt rider. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Soft roaders such as this are unlikely to be challenged by anything worse than rutted gravel roads, and most will probably encounter nothing wilder than the urban jungle. In fact, one could argue that the potholes and jagged curbs of suburbia pose a sterner challenge than any dirt route ever would. So, if heading off the beaten track is not a primary requirement, what's the real reason behind the popularity of soft roaders? Well, the raised stance, the enhanced visibility, and a versatile cabin are among the key drawcards. As one would expect of an SUV, there's a strong emphasis here on space and practicality. And on that level, the Kuga certainly does have plenty of room for both front and rear occupants and a decent cargo capacity. But I have to say, this switchgear could be a lot more intuitive. There's just too much of it, and it does take a bit of time until you really become accustomed to what everything means and just how it operates. But once you know how it all fits together, the cockpit becomes a much friendlier place. And kudos to Ford for dressing it up so smartly. There's a sense of premium execution here that exceeds expectations. Even without any fancy optional extras, the Kuga offers a comprehensive array of active and passive safety features, including stability control, ABS brakes, multiple airbags front and rear, hill launch assistance, and trailer stability assistance. As expected, the interior provides both decent front and rear legroom and ample cargo space. The split rear bench seat allows the luggage compartment to be extended further, and have I mentioned that it's quite peppy too. The new Ford Kuga range consists of 6 models. There are 2 turbo petrol engines to choose from, as well as a turbo diesel, and depending on which engine you choose, you also get to choose between either a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed auto gearbox. Front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive also count amongst the choices, and there are 3 trim levels called Trend, Ambiente and Titanium. For those who still believe that diesels are unrefined, there's a latest generation 1.6-litre EcoBoost petrol engine that comes in 2 states of tune. Front-wheel drive models get the 110 kilowatt version, while the all-wheel drive models have 134 kilowatt on tap. However, the torque peak of 240 Newton meters is the same across both power plants. This particular example of the Kuga we're driving is powered by Ford's 2-litre TDCI turbo diesel engine. It's a very willing unit, 120 kilowatts of maximum power, 340 Newton meters of torque, and it endows the Kuga with plenty of straight line speed. 0 to 100 time, 10.4 seconds, top speed 196 kilometers an hour. It's also all-wheel drive, which means that it's pretty composed and confident regardless of tar or dirt. I think most people will obviously drive this vehicle on tar, but it is very composed on gravel, and I was impressed with the way it would stick to the chosen line. The steering a little bit on the light side, but in general a very pleasing and in fact enjoyable drive. Fuel economy and low emissions are a feature of both the petrol and the diesel engines, but those planning on regular long-distance travel with fairly heavy loads should seriously consider the diesel. Yes, the petrol model feels smoother and more refined, but it lacks the low-down grunt of the diesel. Load the Kuga with family members, luggage and weekend paraphernalia, and the TDCI will win the straight-line dynamics battle hands down. As for off-roading, 4 of the 6 Kuga models are fitted with intelligent all-wheel drive that feeds power to the rear wheels when the conditions demand it. I didn't expect too much on this front. The Kuga is a soft roader at best, and I was convinced that the first bit of rough surfaced gravel would show up its shortcomings. But the harder I drove it, the more settled and composed the Kuga felt. Using the sequential shift to keep it in the required gear, the SUV always felt plucky and up to the task, while the suspension did a sterling job of soaking up some of the bumpier sections. The compact SUV segment is one of the fastest growing in the new vehicle market, and for that reason, Ford will be hoping that the new Kuga brings its success. But it's also a toughly contested segment with the likes of the Kia Sportage, the Hyundai iX35, the new Toyota RAV4 and various others, all vying for honours. The Kuga brings striking styling, a particular emphasis on technology and frugality, as well as real dynamic talent to the party, and it can expect its fair share of success as a result. A choice of lively engines, both manual and auto gearboxes, clever all-wheel drive and lots of tech ensure that the new Kuga improves on the old one in every respect. High-tech safety features and an upmarket cabin are further plus points, but the ergonomics could be better and the petrol versions lack bottom-end grunt.